What is going on, fellow web developers? My name is Tyler Potts, and in today's video we're going to be learning some more JavaScript by creating a simple basic counter application. So as you can see, we've got this simple counter, a little bit of text, and then you've got the actual counter here. So we can increase, you can see we can increase it all the way up, let's say to 25. And then if we want to, we can decrease it. But if we want to get back to 0 real quick, we can just hit the reset button. I've also added in 2 bonus features. So let's say we go up to 10. And if we hit refresh right now, you can see it goes back to 0. But if we go and increase it to 10 and we click save and now we refresh, you can see it's now saved to our browser. So let me show you how that works. So over in application, local storage, you'll see we have this counter which has saved 10, which means we have 10 saved in our counter. Now if you want to manipulate this, we can go in here and we can say, okay, if we wanted, let's say 100, change that to 100, and if we refresh, you can see it's 100, and then we could decrease it, reset. But if we refresh, you can see it goes back to 100. Now if we want to clear this, we can click clear, and as you can see, it's now disappeared from the local storage. So that's what we're going to be building today. It's a little fun project. So without further ado, let's crack on. Okay guys, as you can see, we have a blank VS Code instance open in a blank folder. Nothing's inside this folder. We're going to create some files now. We're going to create 3 files. We're going to create index.html, main.css, and finally main.javascript. Now back in our HTML file, let's just close this sidebar. We are going to, well, firstly, we're going to up the size of our thing here. So we're just going to zoom in a few times. That should be good. And then we're going to hit exclamation mark and tab. Now that's going to give us boilerplate code in VS Code. If not, feel free to write this out yourself. We're then going to do a link, and I'm just going to say main.css to link it to our CSS file. I'm then going to basically put in a script source. So there's 2 ways to include JavaScript. We can include it by file by putting in the file name here, or we could just write JavaScript inside of the HTML in here. So we can say let counter equals 0, for example, or we can actually have a separate file. And we're going to start off with a separate file. So here we have this separate file, and now these are all linked up to our page. So if I go in here and we go to this, instead of demo, let's swap it to YouTube, hit enter, you can see we've got this blank page. Now if I type H1 and I just say test, you can see if I refresh, we get test right there, which is nice. Also, there we go. So we get a test right in there. But let's start off by basically writing out the markup. The markup. So we're going to have a simple H1 in here that just says counter. We're then going to have a paragraph tag, and the paragraph tag will just say a simple counting web app. That should do. And then under here, we're going to have the actual counter. So we're going to have the counter. We'll have a counter value, which will hold the 0 there. We will then have counter controls, which will have a button with a span in the middle, which will just say decrease. We'll then have a button with a span in the middle, which says reset, and a button with a span in the middle that says increase. Now, there's a reason I have the spans in the middle, and it's because we're going to do a little bit of animation, although now I think about it, we might not actually need it. We'll see. Well, this is how it's laid out. So inside each button, I'm just going to write data action is equal to, and I'm just going to say decrease for the first one. The second one will be reset, and the third one will be increase. So we have a data actions. Now what data attributes are, they allow you to basically give some sort of string value to a item on side of this element. So we can search inside of CSS and JavaScript. We could select this by the data action here, which is actually really awesome. But that's what we've got so far. So let's just split these buttons up so we can see them a bit easier. And there you go. We've got those 3 buttons all set out and ready to go. Now, underneath the counter, we're actually going to add another section called save. And then we're going to have a button data action save, which is going to have a span of save and then button. We're then going to have a second button that says data action equal to, and we're going to say clear. And there you go, clear. So that will clear it, and this will save it, just like that. That should be great. We could also add a load button that loads it. So let's just do that so we have that, just so I can show you, because that wasn't in the demo. And there you go. This is what we've got so far. So let's work on the actual styling of this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start off with some root variables. So I'm just going to say root. We're going to have a primary, which will be ed, I think, ed. D8 1E5B, which will be a hashtag, and one of those. We'll then have a secondary, which will be 8A4FFF. We'll have a grey, which will be basically AAA, and then a light, which will be EEE, and finally we'll have a dark, which will be a really dark blue, 131A266, please. And there we go. So that's just some basic CSS variables we've set up there so we can reuse them throughout the thing. We're going to have a border box, margin 0, and the font family here to be Fira Sans serif. Now I have Fira Sans locally installed. I'm not going to use Google Fonts to bring it in, but just so you can use whatever font you actually want to use. We're then going to have a body with a background color, and we're going to say light. We want it to be the light grey. Save, refresh, and there you go. You can see the stylings appearing on the left. We can then go into main, and we're just going to say padding 3 rem, 2 rem. And that should bring it in. Perfect. Oh, we also on this want a max width of 640 pixels. And we're going to have a margin 0 auto there as well. We're going to have a H1. And this we're going to start it with a color of dark. We'll give it a font size quite big. I want it to be about 4 rem. We will also have the text transform of uppercase, so it is always uppercase, and a margin bottom of 1 rem. Just like that. Let's refresh, and that's looking a lot better already. Now let's style that paragraph tag underneath. So this is going to have a color of grey, so we'll say color grey. We're then going to have a font size of 1.5 rem. That seems about right. And then a font style of italic. And a margin bottom of 2 rem. Hit save. Oh, hello, wrong foot. There we go. That's looking good. That's looking good. All right. Now, underneath the thing, we have the counter we needed to set up. So in the counter, we're going to have a background color, and it's going to be our dark. We want it to kind of contrast with the background. We'll have a padding of 1 rem, so it's 16 pixels all the way around. Border radius of 1 rem as well. And then we'll have a color of white, just so it looks all right, so you can actually read the font in there. And then we'll have the counter value, and this one will say font size 8 rem. We want it to be really big. And then, yep, font weight bold, we'll say 700. And probably text align center. Save, refresh, and there we go. That's looking a lot better already. Now, under the value, we're going to have the controls. So if we go into the controls, what I want to do is I'm going to use flex to align these. So I'm going to say display flex, justify content center, align item center, margin 0 minus 0.5 rem. And then for the actual button, so counter controls button, I just want to say margin 0.5 rem. Save, refresh, and there you go. That's already looking, oh, that should be 0.5 rem. Oh, I keep accidentally hitting the wrong key. There we go. Much better. So that's the keys. Now let's actually reset the style of the button. So we're going to say appearance, oh, none, background, none, border none, and outline none. And there we go. That should basically leave it just a plain button. There we go. So it looks like plain text. We're then going to basically just go down here. We'll just say, what should we say? Color. We've got to change the color of it. Let's say far primary. We'll then have font size 1.5 rem, font weight 700, text transform uppercase, cursor pointer. There we go. Look at this. And we'll also need a transition of 0.4 ease out. And I think that's good for the buttons. So let's have a look. There you go. So they're all there now. Let's then go in and go button span and display it as a block. We then want to give it also a transition of 0.4 ease out. And we want to say button data action. And we want to check for the reset button. So this is what I mean by you can actually target them inside of this. So we're going to get that specific button. We're going to give it color of, give it a white, and then an opacity of 0.5. We're then going to get the exact same thing again. So we're going to say button data action reset on hover this time. And I'm just going to say opacity 1. Refresh, and there you go. You can see we now get this nice little opacity effect there. I then want to basically go dot save, and in the dot save I'm just going to say margin top 2 rem. Push it down quite a bit. We're going to display it as flex as well. Align items center, justify content center, margin. Oh, actually, okay, we need to actually go under margin top. Margin left minus 0.5 rem and margin right 0.5 rem, and that should have that, and that should be a negative. Okay, so this should basically just give us a better even spacing, and then we can just have save button, and we want this to have the color of dark, well, dark, just like that. There we go. So that's more center. And then we should probably have a button active class. So when we actually click the button, we're going to transform it to scale of 1.1 just to make it a little bit bigger. So now when we click these, you can see they give a little bounce. So you know they've been clicked. So yeah, that's it for the CSS. So that's it all just styled up. So as you can see here, if we make this bigger or smaller, you can see it kind of stretches to the screen, and it's nice. It doesn't look too bad on big screens either. There we go. So that's that. But now we need to actually start the JavaScript. So what we can do in JavaScript, we can use 3 different types of variables. We can say a constant, or const, which means you cannot change whatever it is. So if you say this is equal to, yep, you cannot then go const dash or say dash is equal to new, because that's not going to work. You actually will need to, you can't change it. It's a constant. We then have a let value, which can be changed, which we can say trigger, and then we could say like add a trigger here, or just say trigger. And then we could say trigger is equal to trigger new, and that would work. However, you can also use far, but I'm not going to go over that today. It's the same as let, but with a different block scoping. So for now, we're going to use a constant to get our actions, and we're going to basically get an array of items which are buttons. We're basically going to get all the buttons on the page. And how we're going to do that is we're going to say array.from, because we don't want to get the nodes list. So when here you go. So instead of action, we're going to say data action, and put those in square brackets. And now that's going to get us any element which has the attribute of data action. Now, the reason we're using array from is because this will return a list of nodes, and we cannot loop through those with a for each method, and array from will just convert them into a normal array. So if we just log actions, I will show you what this does. Let's just open up 12, console refresh. You can see we actually get all our buttons, but if I remove this array, you can see, look how the array looks there. And then when we refresh this time, you can see it comes as a node list, which is different, and we kind of want an array. So that's where we're going to go array.from. And that's basically where this comes in. There you go. So that should hopefully be a bit better. Break that down so you can actually see it better. And then once we've done that, we basically want to have a counter. So we're going to say counter is equal to 0. And then we're just going to say document.querySelector. And we basically want to get the counter element. So we're going to say counter value dot inner text is equal to counter. So now when this loads, it's going to set whatever this value is. So let's set it to 10. Over here, so if we refresh, you can see it now says 10. Let's set it back to 0. It just gives us a way of automatically setting it once the page loads, so we don't have to worry about it later on. We're then going to say actions, and we're going to say for each. Now this is going to loop through and go through every single action individually, and we're going to use an arrow function. So there's different types of functions. You can use an arrow function or a function. So there is function, which has a block scope, which means anything inside of this does not leak out, or basically as a block scope, and this one does not, however. So inside of this, we can actually get this would be the window or document. We then want to go action.add event listener, click, and then we're going to use another arrow function because we don't want the block scope. And let's pass that there. And this is really annoying. So we're going to say action type is equal to action.dataset.action, which is going to get us the type of action we want, because this is basically going to get the value we have inside a data action. As you see here, whatever this inside these quotes are, you can see data action, save. So that's going to get that. It's going to get increase. So if we just go in here and we just log type, hit save and refresh. So you can see we click this one, it says reset. If we click this one, it says increase, save, load. Oh, that says clear. Do we have clear twice? Yes, we do. That should be load. So we should get load now, save, clear, decrease, reset, and increase. So there you go. That works perfectly. So nothing was wrong. I was just not checking it right. And then we want to create a switch, and a switch allows us to check if what this value equals and then run some sort of function. So here we have increment, or we're going to change this to say increase. And then on increase, we're going to say counter plus plus break. We're then going to say case decrease, and we're just going to say counter minor minus break, case reset, counter is equal to 0 break. Now that's all we're going to do quickly for now. And then we want to go basically get the same up here and just apply it down here. So now if we refresh and we click increase, you can see the features actually work. We can hit reset and it will put it back to 0, or we can just keep increasing it, but we can't save it. So if we click save and hit load, you can see it does not load anything new, and none of this actually works. So let's basically create a case for each one of these. So let's say save, and we're going to say local storage dot set item counter break case load, local storage dot get item break. So you can see that's going to set it. And then we're also going to have finally a case called clear, which will say local storage dot clear break. Now, if we refresh and we go, let's say save at 3, and now we increase and we click load, you can see it goes back to 3. But if we clear and then we refresh the page, you can see it goes back to 0. When we clear, I'm also going to set the counter back to 0, just so it resets for everyone to see. So there we go. Now, we have a few different issues here. So you can see we have local storage, but when we refresh, if we just basically, let's say increase it to 7 and we click save and we refresh, you can see it still goes back to 0, but if we click load, it brings up 7. But what happens if we want this to be default? So what we can do is we can say here, local storage dot get item, and we can say counter. I think we called it counter. We did. And there you go. We can say that. So now if we refresh page, you can see we get 7. But if we clear this and we refresh, you can see we get nothing, because this returns nothing or null. So what we want to do is we want to say or 0. So if this value is empty, we're going to basically, so if it's not equal to a number or some sort of positive value, it's going to be like, okay, cool, that's not the right number. Let's use 0. And now if we refresh, you can see we actually get something. So if we decrease and we save and we refresh, you can see we still have -4 when we refresh the page. If we reset it and we refresh, you can see we go back to -4. We could increase it to, let's say, 10, hit save, refresh. You can see it always, even if we reset and refresh, you can see it always go down. We can reset and hit load and it will bring it back to 10. We could also hit clear and it will go to 0. And that will clear the local storage. So that is actually how you create this counter. It's super basic, super simple stuff, and I hope you've learned a bunch of different elements in JavaScript. We've got things from constants, array from, counter, local storage, let, checking a empty value and giving it an or value. We can, using query selector to actually find a single element or multiple elements using the all query selector. We have a for each loop looping through a list of actions. And we also have event listeners, a click event. So when we click buttons, we can actually do something with it where we have a data set and we check what one we get to call this specific function or functionality. And there you go. That is all you need when you're actually working with a simple counter like this. In the next one, I might try and make this a bit further. We might try and make like a cookie clicker game. So if none of you knows what cookie clicker is, let's just go cookie clicker, go over here, and here you go. Let's full screen it. So cookie clicker is basically a game where you click a cookie, but after a certain time you can get cursors, and if you get one of those, it will then click the cookie automatically. And it's basically a game. You've got to see how many cookies you can get. And if you go crazy on this game, so let's just spam click, boom, and we get a granny, because, you know, we all want a granny to bake our cookies for us. There you go. Get a grandma. You can see our cookies are now going up even quicker. And if we just keep getting cookies, we can keep buying more stuff. And that's basically how this game works. So maybe we should create our own. Let me know what you want to see with this. If you do want me to show you how to build something like this with local storage, or maybe we can even include a database if that's something you're interested in. We could use Vue.js or something like that, but basically create a different type of counter. All this is a simple counter app that you can have automatic counters. It's not as simple as I'd make it out to be, but that's basically what it is. You can see there, it's pretty cool. You can keep buying stuff and you can upgrade these to do it even more. Basically, it's a really cool little app. So guys, if you want to see that, then don't forget to let me know in the comment section. But for now, guys, thank you for watching this video. If you've enjoyed, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.